As we all know by now, many fans have voiced concerns about the casting of Severus Snape for the new Harry Potter series because the character has always been described as a pale, hook-nosed, greasy-haired man. But beyond appearances, Snape is one of the most complex characters in the entire series, with a deeply layered backstory including experiences of bullying in his youth. For HBO, the challenge here is clear. They need to make it obvious that Snape's complexity, his students' dislike for him, and his challenges in his youth are because of his character, and not his appearance. And this episode has a pivotal scene that, if executed well, could go a long way at easing fan concerns, while finally revealing crucial details about Snape's past. So with that in mind, let's jump into my vision for Harry Potter Season 3, Episode 5, Snape's Grudge. We open with Harry, Ron, Fred and George all trudging down to the Quidditch pitch, with Ron still fuming about Scabbers and Crookshanks. He's absolutely convinced that Hermione's cat has eaten Scabbers, and he can't believe that she's still defending him. Fred and George, for once, are actually trying to calm Ron down and trying to offer support, saying,
"Come on, Ron. You were always saying how boring Scabbers was."
What I really want is to show just how fractured the trio has got at this point, as this is the biggest fallout they've ever had. Harry's caught in the middle, trying to keep the peace, but both of them are way too stubborn to listen. It's such a small and human moment, but it's incredibly sad, as this is one of the few times that we see genuine cracks in their friendship, and it makes their eventual reconciliation so much more meaningful. As they finally reach the Quidditch pitch, however, the mood changes into excitement, as this is the first time we will see Harry on the Firebolt. Now in the movies, as I've mentioned before, I don't really like how the Firebolt was kind of glossed over. It's this legendary broomstick, the fastest in the world, and we never really got to see what makes it so special. And in this episode, I'd love for HBO to show off just how incredible it is. We move into the Quidditch training session, and the camera tracks Harry as he shoots into the sky like a red and gold blur, while the rest of the team stare in awe. I want to see cinematic close-ups of the Firebolt cutting through the clouds, the sound design focusing on the sound of rushing wind, and sunlight glinting off the handle. After a brief montage of the session, Harry lands and gives the Firebolt to Ron, who takes it hesitantly before kicking off into the sky. I really like the idea that this moment foreshadows him being on the Quidditch team in Season 5. We see his enthusiasm and potential here, especially as nobody is watching, and it just ties together the future of the story really nicely in a nice natural way. The scene then winds down as the sun dips below the trees and Harry and Ron head back to the castle. But then something catches Harry's eye, two glowing orbs in the distance, and he freezes, thinking he's seen the Grim. But when Ron casts Lumos, they see it's actually Crookshanks skulking in the grass. Ron immediately tenses, but before he can throw something at Crookshanks, Crookshanks streaks off into the distance. The boys shrug it off and head towards the castle, but we don't follow them. Instead, the camera lingers on the forest edge, and we see Crookshanks trotting through the trees, before he comes to a stop in front of a silhouette of a giant black dog. The two regard each other for a moment, before we cut to black and the title sequence rolls. Before we properly jump into this pivotal episode, please remember to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We're really close to 2,000 subscribers now. Remember to like the video and hit the notification bell for new Harry Potter My Vision episodes every single week. We open on a close-up of the Firebolt, and as we zoom out, we see that it is over Harry's shoulder as he walks into the Great Hall. The Gryffindor students part like a guard of honor with all eyes on the broomstick. It's a great moment of pride for Harry, as it's finally something good that's happening to him, as this year has just been pretty horrendous so far. From there, we cut to a quick montage of the students heading to the Quidditch pitch for the match, and this has kind of become a bit bit of a stylistic motif throughout the seasons, and it's something that I think we're getting kind of used to at this point, and definitely something that HBO can play with visually. Then we move into the Gryffindor versus Ravenclaw match, and I really want this to be a standout moment of this episode. And we finally meet Cho Chang here for the first time. Just like with Cedric, we actually meet her in the third book, not the fourth one like in the movie. Harry notices her instantly, her confidence, her speed, and her smile, and there's definitely an unspoken connection here that the show should be able to convey. Throughout the match, Lee Jordan's commentary will be incredible as always, as he bigs up the Firebolt and its speed and performance, with McGonagall saying,
"Jordan, are you being paid to advertise Firebolts? Get on with the commentary."
It would honestly be a proper showcase of what Quidditch can be when treated properly, with it being immersive, emotional, and high-paced. Throughout the match, Cho Chang is constantly blocking Harry in order to negate the Firebolt, with Wood saying to just knock her off her broomstick. As the match reaches its peak, Harry hears Cho Chang scream, and when he looks down to the pitch, he sees 3 Dementors staring up at him. But this time, he is ready. He plunges his hand into his robes, pulls out his wand, and performs a Patronus straight at the Dementors. We don't see it clearly as Harry is focused on the snitch, but we do catch a glimpse of something enormous shooting out of his wand and onto the pitch. The crowd goes wild as Harry catches the snitch, and as he lands, the tension turns to chaos. McGonagall storms onto the pitch furiously, and we see that the Dementors were actually Malfoy, Crabbe, Goyle, and Marcus Flint, wearing big cloaks. The sequence ends with the Gryffindors celebrating in the common room, but as this sequence is pretty long already, we don't linger too long. The camera drifts through the fading party, and we see Harry and Ron heading up to their dormitory, exhausted but happy. Harry climbs into bed, pulls the curtain shut, and goes to sleep as the screen fades to black. For a moment, everything is peaceful, before we suddenly hear a scream in the darkness, and Harry awakes with a jolt. He sees Ron, who's sitting up in bed with his curtains slashed, who says,
"Black! Sirius Black! With a knife!"
We cut to black to end sequence 1. Sequence 2 opens in chaos as the common room is packed again, although this time everyone is in pyjamas, whispering and muttering. We see Ron retelling the story to Percy that he was lying in bed before he woke up and saw Sirius Black standing over him with a knife. McGonagall then arrives and demands to know what happened. I'd love this moment to capture just how human McGonagall can be, as I honestly think she is genuinely scared at this point, as somebody has broken into her student's dormitory. She goes on to question Sir Cadogan, who proudly says that of course he let a man into the common room, and when McGonagall asks what about the passwords, he says,
"He had 'em, had the whole weeks, milady. Read 'em off a little piece of paper."
McGonagall demands to know who's been leaving the passwords lying around, and in the silence, Neville raises his hand. Poor Neville. I mean, it is a great moment of innocence and consequence though, and it perfectly sets up his growth for the future. We then cut to breakfast the next morning with Ron surrounded by a group of excited first years as he retells his story like a war hero, clearly loving the attention. Meanwhile, Neville's howler arrives and he sprints from the Great Hall before we hear his grandmother's voice echoing in the corridor. Harry also receives a note from Hagrid, who asks if they want to go to his hut for a cup of tea that afternoon, and then we cut to Hagrid's hut. They talk about the trial and Hermione, with Ron still being bitter but Hagrid trying to convince him to forgive her. It's a heartfelt little moment, with Hagrid showing how much he knows about friendship and loyalty, even if he struggles to express it sometimes. Afterwards, we cut to the common room with Harry and Ron seeing the notice board where the new Hogsmeade trip has been announced. Ron asks Harry if he'll go, but Hermione says that she'll tell McGonagall if he does. I want this to feel incredibly tense and real, as these are 3 friends who truly love each other, but they are falling apart under the weight of everything that's happening. Ron snaps and says,
"So now you're trying to get Harry expelled? Haven't you done enough damage this year?"
before Hermione storms off, and Harry stays quiet before whispering to Ron that he will go, but he will take the invisibility cloak. From here, we shift perspectives. One thing I noticed I've been doing is simply following Harry from scene to scene, which is obviously fair enough as the series is from his perspective, but sometimes it would be nice to mix things up a little bit. We actually cut to Snape skulking the halls of Hogwarts, docking points from students and being his usual mean self. This also ties in quite nicely to the title of this episode. We then watch Snape round a corner and he sees Harry standing suspiciously by the one-eyed witch statue. They exchange words and Snape tells Harry to go to his dormitory, and as Harry walks away he glances over his shoulder and sees Snape examining the statue before he eventually leaves. Harry waits until Snape is gone before rushing back to the statue, tapping it with his wand and saying Descendium. We cut to the Hogsmeade High Street. We see Ron standing outside Honeydukes before we suddenly hear Harry's voice saying "I'm behind you" as he's under the cloak. The Hogsmeade sequence that follows is something that I think Potter fans have been dying to see. Firstly, Harry and Ron visit Zonko's and we'll see the shelves packed with all sorts of wizarding joke items. Then they head to the post office, which is filled with owls of every size and colour, labelled with different prices for different distances. It's the kind of sequence that lets us breathe a little bit and reminds us of the wonder of the wizarding world before things get dark again. And it all leads to the Shrieking Shack scene where Malfoy, Crabbe and Goyle show up. And like in the movie with Harry under the cloak, he proceeds to throw snowballs and mud at them. But then Goyle trips backwards and his foot catches on the invisibility cloak, which pulls off, revealing Harry's floating head. Malfoy screams, and the three of them sprint off in the direction of the castle, before we cut to black to end Sequence 2. Sequence 3 opens in darkness, with Harry sprinting through the passageway back to Hogwarts. He bursts out of the statue, mud-splattered and sweating, before he suddenly comes face to face with Snape. The next scene is absolutely massive in my opinion, and it's a full 10 to 15 minute sequence of Harry heading with Snape to his office and everything that happens in there. And I'd also keep it almost word for word what we got in the book. It's one of my favourite interactions between the two of them, and it peels back so many layers for both of them. Snape tells Harry that Malfoy came back with a very interesting story. He tells Harry that he's not permitted to be in Hogsmeade. In fact, he says,
"Your head is not allowed in Hogsmeade. No part of your body has permission to be in Hogsmeade."
Snape accuses Harry of being arrogant like his father, at which Harry snaps and shouts at Snape that he knows that his father saved Snape's life. The tension here is probably the highest we've ever seen between Snape and Harry, as years of resentment and grief crash together. Snape searches Harry's pockets and finds the Zonko's products and doesn't believe a word of Harry's excuses. Then he picks up the Marauder's map. The camera lingers on Snape's face as he tries to read it, and we hear the insults.
Mr. Mooney presents his compliments to Professor Snape and begs him to keep his abnormally large nose out of other people's business. Mr. Prongs agrees with Mr. Mooney and would like to add that Professor Snape is an ugly git. Mr. Padfoot would like to register his astonishment that an idiot like that ever became a professor.
Mr. Wormtail bids Professor Snape good day and advises him to wash his hair, the slime ball.
The tone shifts from suspicion to humiliation to cold fury. Snape goes on to call Lupin with flue powder, and we see Lupin's outline spinning in the fireplace before he steps out into the office. As he covers for Harry, we focus on Snape looking at Lupin with pure disdain. I think it's sometimes forgotten just how much Snape dislikes Lupin, just as he does with James and Sirius, and I really want to see the years of history reflected here. Ron then bursts in, backing up Harry's story, saying, and Snape has no choice but to let Harry go. Once they're out, Lupin turns on Harry, and this is honestly one of my favourite moments from the Prisoner of Azkaban movie and the book, with Lupin showing a more stern and disappointed side, and Harry looking devastated. It's definitely something that I would keep almost identical to what we got in the movie. The climax of the episode then begins as Harry and Ron walk back to the common room in silence. As they arrive, they see Hermione waiting for them. Ron snaps first, saying,
"Come to have a good gloat."
But we see Hermione is crying, and as she looks up, she says that Hagrid has lost his appeal and Buckbeak will be executed. We hold on that for a few beats before the screen cuts to black and the credits roll silently. For me, the episode captures the chaos of Hogwarts life, the cracks in the trio's friendship, and the growing sense of darkness creeping in. It gives Snape more depth, builds on Harry and Lupin's relationship, and ties everything together with themes of loyalty and misunderstanding. But more than that, Snape's grudge itself feels like a moment where the story really starts to grow up. The friendships are strained, the threats are more personal, and we start to see the cost of everything, such as keeping secrets, loyalty, and holding grudges. It's one of those episodes that reminds you why Prisoner of Azkaban is such a turning point. But what do you think? Would you change anything about this episode? Please let me know your ideas and thoughts down in the comments below. Once again, remember to hit the subscribe button, like the video, and hit the notification bell for more HBO Harry Potter news, theories, and breakdowns. I'll be back next time when I release my vision for Harry Potter Season 3, Episode 6.